Your EV battery didn't die from one bad habit. It died from Tuesday's fast charge after a hot commute, from the 100% charge you left sitting in the driveway all weekend, from the January morning you floored out of a parking lot with a cold, depleted pack. None of those moments felt dangerous. That's exactly the problem. Most EV owners who experience faster than expected degradation spend a lot of time looking for the one habit that caused it. Was it the fast charging, the cold weather, the fact that they kept the car at 100% for a few days? The answer is actually all three, at different times, feeding into each other. Real-world telematics data collected from over 22,000 EVs across 21 different models puts the average annual degradation rate at 2.3% per year. That sounds manageable until you realize that number climbs significantly when habits combine, and drops around 1.4% per year for drivers who avoid stacking stressors. The difference between those two numbers, compounded over 8 years, is the difference between a battery at 82% capacity and one closer to 70% capacity, which is right at the threshold where most manufacturers consider it end of life. Think about what that means in practical terms. A car that launched with 300 miles of range now delivers 210 miles at 70% capacity. That's not a minor inconvenience. That's a vehicle that fundamentally changes how you plan every trip, every charge stop, every winter drive. And the frustrating part is that it didn't have to get there that fast. So let's go through exactly which combinations do the most damage. Heat plus fast charging, the worst combo. DC fast charging already generates heat inside the battery. That's unavoidable. When high current flows through lithium-ion cells at speed, the internal temperature rises, and the battery management system works to control it. Now, add a hot day or a hot climate, or aggressive driving on the way to the charger. The battery arrives at the fast charger already warm. The charging session pushes it warmer, and sustained heat at the cell level accelerates the exact chemical reactions that cause permanent capacity loss. Data consistently shows that EV batteries in warmer climates degrade 0.4% faster per year than those in mild climates. And that's before factoring in fast charging on top of it. NMC batteries, which are still the most common chemistry in the US and Europe, are particularly vulnerable here. Their cathodes begin breaking down and releasing gas at lower temperatures than LFP batteries, which means thermal stress hits harder and earlier. The practical rule is simple. If you've been driving hard in warm weather, your battery is already stressed. Plugging into a 150 kilowatt rapid charger right after is compounding two stressors simultaneously. Where possible, let the car sit, cool down, and then charge. Or use the slower charger. The convenience of rapid charging is real. The cost to the battery is also real. One more thing worth knowing here. The damage from heat isn't always immediate or visible. Your range readout won't drop overnight, but the chemical changes happening at the cell level during repeated hot fast charging sessions are permanent. There's no recovery cycle. There's no software update that reverses it. The capacity that heat takes is gone, and it comes off the total quietly, mile by mile, until the dashboard tells a story you weren't expecting. High charge plus long parking. Charging to 100% is not automatically a problem. For a long road trip, it makes complete sense. The problem is charging to 100% and then leaving the car parked. Lithium-ion cells experience something called calendar aging, degradation that happens during storage, not during use. And calendar aging is significantly accelerated when the battery sits at a high state of charge, especially in warm temperatures. Real-world charging data tells a clear story. Vehicles that regularly charge to 100% degrade at an average rate of 2% per year. Vehicles that charge to 80% for daily use degrade at 1.4 to 1.5% per year. That gap compounds. Over 8 years, the driver who routinely charges to full and leaves the car parked is looking at meaningfully less usable capacity than the driver who charges to 80% and drives. The standard recommendation, keep daily charging between 20 and 80%, exists for this reason. It's not marketing, it's chemistry. The cells are under less electrical stress at mid-range charge levels. Less stress means slower degradation. If your routine is to plug in every night, set the charge limit to 80%, save the full charge for when you actually need the range. Low battery plus high load. Running the battery down low is not by itself a catastrophic event. Manufacturers build buffers into both ends of the battery to prevent the cells from ever truly hitting zero. But here's a habit that makes low charge genuinely damaging: running the battery into the low range and then immediately demanding high output from it. Hard acceleration from a nearly depleted pack, highway speeds with 10% remaining, anything that asks the battery to deliver significant power when it has almost nothing left puts real stress on the cells. Stress they're far less equipped to handle at low charge states than at mid-range. This matters especially with NMC chemistry. LFP handles low charge scenarios because of its more stable chemistry, but NMC cells are more react at the extremes. Staying above 20% isn't just a buffer for your anxiety about running out. It's a genuine protection against a type of degradation that shortens cycle life. The habit to break here is treating low charge as normal operating territory. It isn't. Below 20% is where the battery is most vulnerable, and flooring it in that state is the kind of stress that adds up invisibly over years. What makes this particularly tricky is that EVs don't penalize you in the moment. The motor still responds, the acceleration still feels instant. Nothing beeps or warns you that the cells are under unusual strain. The feedback loop that would change behavior simply doesn't exist, which is why so many drivers repeat this pattern for years without realizing what it's costing them long term. Before we continue, hit the subscribe button to stay updated on the latest information about EVs. Short trips plus constant cycling. This one surprises many drivers because short trips feel easy on a battery. If you're not asking for range, you're not using much energy. How could that be a problem? The issue isn't the trips themselves. It's the charging patterns that comes with them. Many short-trip EV drivers charge daily, use 10 to 20% of the battery, then top it back up, then do it again the next day, and the next. This creates a high number of partial charge cycles concentrated in the upper range of the battery, exactly where NMC cells experience the most stress. Hyundai published data on their Soul EV that makes this visible. A battery cycled at full depth from 0 to 100% can handle around 1,000 complete cycles. A battery used at 50% depth handles 5,000. A battery used at only 20% depth handles 8,000. The fewer electrons you move through the cells in each cycle, the longer those cells last. But here's the counterintuitive part. If your 20% daily usage is always happening between 80% and 100%, the most chemically stressed zone, you're not getting the benefit of shallow cycling. You're getting the worst of both worlds. The fix is straightforward. If you're a short trip driver, set your daily charge limit lower. Let the battery breathe in the middle of its range rather than constantly cycling through the top. Cold weather plus no preconditioning. Cold weather doesn't damage EV batteries the way heat does, at least not in the long-term degradation sense. What cold weather does is make everything harder in the short term, and when drivers don't account for that, they push the battery into unnecessary stress. In cold conditions, battery chemistry slows down. LFP batteries lose 10 to 20% of their performance below 0 degrees Celsius and operate at only 60% capacity at negative 20 degrees Celsius. NMC handles cold better for charging, but loses range. Both chemistries require more energy to maintain operating temperature. The problem with battery health comes when drivers skip preconditioning. Preconditioning, warming the battery to operating temperature while the car is still plugged in, costs grid energy rather than battery energy. It means the battery starts the drive already in its optimal temperature window. Skip it, and the battery spends the first portion of every cold drive warming itself up from the inside, using stored energy and operating under higher internal resistance than it was designed for. Over time, repeated cold starts without preconditioning add up. The battery works harder than it should on every winter morning. That cumulative strain isn't dramatic on any single day. It's the kind of thing that shows up in a degradation curve 3 winters later. If your EV has a preconditioning function, and most modern ones do, use it. Schedule it. It costs almost nothing on grid power and saves the battery from unnecessary early morning stress. Why these habits add up over time. Here's the honest version of what battery degradation looks like in practice. Each of these habits on its own is survivable. A single fast charge on a hot day won't materially change your battery's long-term capacity. A weekend at 100% charge won't either. One cold morning without preconditioning, nothing changes. The problem is that these habits don't happen once. They happen consistently, and they happen together. The driver who fast charges regularly, parks at 100% several times a week, lives in a warm climate, and never preconditions is not doing any one catastrophic thing. They're doing 5 moderately stressful things simultaneously, across thousands of days, and the degradation compounds silently. This is why real-world data shows such a widespread in battery health across vehicles the same age and mileage. 2 identical EVs, 5 years old, can have meaningfully different range capacity, not because of luck, but because of habits. The degradation curve for EV batteries follows an S shape. There's a faster loss early in the battery's life, then a long stable middle period, then a sharper decline at the end. Most batteries on the road today are in that stable middle zone. How quickly they reach the steeper end of that curve is largely determined by how they've been used. What to actually do instead? This isn't about being obsessive. It's about making a handful of consistent choices that keep stressors from stacking. Don't fast charge when the battery is already hot. If you've been driving in warm weather, give the car time to cool before plugging into a rapid charger. Or use a level 2 instead. Don't leave the car sitting at 100%. Charge it to 80% for daily use, charge to 100% the night before a long trip, and leave promptly in the morning rather than letting it sit. Don't run low and then demand high output. Keep the battery above 20% as a genuine operating floor, not just an anxiety threshold. If you're a short trip driver, manage where the battery's range your cycling happens. A charge limit of 70 to 75% for daily use keeps you out of the most chemically stressful zone. Precondition in cold weather while plugged in. It takes 2 minutes to schedule and costs almost nothing on grid power. None of this requires tracking your charging sessions in a spreadsheet. It requires awareness of the patterns that stress the battery most and a few adjustments that become second nature after a week. The battery isn't fragile, it just keeps score. If this gives you a clear picture of what's actually happening inside your battery, subscribe. We cover EV ownership the way it should be, with real data and no filler. Leave a comment below and tell us which of these habits you're guilty of. You might be surprised how many people are in the same boat.